Hi, I'm Faith Pinot from LA Times Studios in Washington, D.C. Here's some of today's top stories from the Los Angeles Times. The Trump administration moved to block a court order Friday, requiring it to fully fund food stamps during the government shutdown. According to reporters, the appeal comes less than 24 hours after a federal judge ordered the administration to pay out all November SNAP benefits. Judge John McConnell Jr. of Rhode Island said cutting payments to 65% would cause serious harm to low-income families. But the administration appealed the ruling, asking a higher court to halt it. The White House argued that the judge's order violates the Constitution by forcing the government to spend money that Congress hasn't yet approved. Take a listen to what Vice President J.D. Vance said Thursday night after McConnell's decision.
Jackie, it's an absurd ruling because you have a federal judge effectively telling us what we have to do in the midst of a Democrat government shutdown, which what we'd like to do is for the Democrats to open up the government. Of course, then we can fund SNAP, and we can also do a lot of other good things for the American people. But in the midst of a shutdown, we can't have a federal court telling the president how he has to triage the situation. We're trying to keep as much turned on. We're trying to keep as much going as possible. The president and the entire administration are working on that, but we're not going to do it under the orders of a federal judge. We're going to do it according to what we think we have to do to comply with the law, of course, but also to actually make the government work for people in the midst of the Democrat government shutdown.
About 42 million Americans rely on SNAP. The program costs $9 billion a month, and officials say emergency funds alone can't cover it. Still, some states aren't waiting. Wisconsin officials said full benefits were already loaded overnight for some residents, while Michigan says it's ready to distribute payments as soon as federal funds are released. Republicans are calling the judge's ruling government overreach, but Democrats call it a lifeline for families struggling to eat during the record-long shutdown. Meanwhile, the appeals court could decide as early as this weekend whether the administration must follow through on payments. And with the holiday travel rush just days away, flyers could be in for a bumpy start. According to Karen Garcia, the FAA said Thursday that it's cutting commercial air traffic by 10%. The cuts will affect 40 major airports around the country starting Friday, a direct result of the government shutdown as it stretches into the second month. Here's what FAA Administrator Brian Bedford said Wednesday about the changes.
As we dig deeper into the data, what we find are issues of fatigue and that our flight controllers are experiencing. And we see that through voluntary safety disclosure reports coming in from commercial air transport pilots. That data has allowed us to focus not on the NAS as a whole, but on specific markets where we're seeing some of these reports come to us. And as we slice the data more granularly, we are seeing pressures build in a way that we don't feel will, if we allow it to go unchecked, will allow us to continue to tell the public that we operate the safest airline system in the world.
The agency says the move is meant to ease pressure on air traffic controllers, many of whom are working without pay and calling out sick. But the cuts could mean nearly 2,000 canceled flights every day nationwide. 5 California airports will be hit hardest, including LAX, San Francisco, San Diego, Oakland, and Ontario. At LAX alone, about 72 flights a day could be scrapped, impacting more than 12,000 passengers. United and American Airlines say their long-haul international and hub-to-hub routes should remain unaffected. Still, experts are warning travelers to prepare for delays. They recommend booking nonstop flights, flying earlier in the day, and keeping essentials like medications and chargers in carry-on bags. Apps like Flighty and TripIt can also help track delays and find backup flights in real time. Meanwhile, some airlines like United are offering travel waivers that let passengers reschedule or cancel without fees. And if you booked your flight with a credit card that offers trip delay insurance, you may qualify for reimbursement for hotels or meals. Bottom line, if you're flying this holiday season, check your flight status often, download your airline's app, and have a backup plan ready to go. And a new poll shows former Congresswoman Katie Porter is losing ground in California's 2026 governor's race. A UC Berkeley poll co-sponsored by the LA Times found support for Porter dropped after an on-camera clash with a reporter. And according to LA Times reporters, the incident sparked questions about her temperament. Now, Porter is trailing Republican Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco 13% to 11%. Over the summer, Porter led the crowded field, but after a tense October interview where she told a journalist she didn't need Trump voters' support, and another video resurfaced of her yelling at a staffer, her numbers dropped 6 points. Porter later apologized, saying she mishandled the interview and that her staff comments were, quote, inappropriate. Still, Democratic rivals like Betty Yee and Antonio Villaraigosa have seized on the moment, calling her behavior disqualifying. Despite the controversy, Porter remains the top Democrat in the race, but with nearly half of voters still undecided, analysts say the field is still wide open. And big changes could be coming to kids' social media use overseas. Denmark is taking a hard line, banning children under 15 from most social media platforms. According to reporters, the Danish government announced Friday that anyone under 15 will soon be blocked from using apps like TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat, unless their parents give special permission starting at age 13. The move, led by Denmark's Ministry of Digitalization, is aimed at protecting kids from harmful content and online pressure. Officials say the constant noise of social media is affecting everything from children's sleep to focus and mental health, and that parents can't fight that alone. It's one of the toughest policies yet in Europe and follows Australia's new national ban on social media for children under 16. There, companies like Meta and TikTok face multi-million-dollar fines for failing to keep minors off their platforms. Denmark hasn't said exactly how the rule will be enforced, but officials call it a, quote, line in the sand against the tech giants they say have had too much control in kids' lives. And if approved by Parliament, Denmark will become the first country in the EU with a national age limit for social media. And foreigners applying to live in the United States could now be denied visas if they have certain medical conditions, including diabetes or obesity. That's according to a new State Department directive uncovered by KFF Health News. The guidance issued Thursday by the Trump administration tells visa officers to deny applicants who might become a, quote, public charge or a potential financial burden because of their health or age. The memo lists conditions like cardiovascular disease, cancer, and mental illness as red flags, warning that long-term care for those illnesses can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It also cites obesity, saying it can lead to costly conditions such as asthma and high blood pressure. Experts say the move gives visa officers wide discretion to reject applicants, even though most aren't medically trained. Immigration lawyers warn it could also lead to bias and speculation about who might get sick in the future. And critics call it the latest escalation in Trump's efforts to curb immigration, adding to mass deportations, refugee limits, and tightened visa rules. Meanwhile, the State Department hasn't responded to questions about when the new policy takes effect or how many people it could impact. That's it for now. To read these stories and more, be sure to subscribe to the LA Times.